G'day guys, Rukshan here. Thanks for joining me for yet another news vlog. I hope you guys are enjoying a lovely Saturday evening for those of you watching from Australia. Now, first up, a story that will surprise absolutely no one related to our former Premier Daniel Andrews. Dictator Dan has now become Director Dan. That's right, Daniel Andrews, his post-political career involves the establishment of two businesses. Now, the part that won't surprise you or shock you is there's potential links back to one of his favorite parts of the world, China. Now, let me read this article and show you what this is all about. Director Daniel Andrews sits at top of new business venture. Daniel Andrews has launched his post-political career by establishing two companies this week, one of which has an association with a Chinese-Australian businessman. Australian Securities and Investment Commission documents show the former Victorian Premier and Zheng Mei are joint shareholders in one of the newly created companies. Mr. Andrews, who as Premier made 6 official trade missions to China, has registered Glencairn Street Proprietary Limited and Wedgetail Partners Proprietary Limited, both of which are based in an office tower in St Kilda. ASIC records show that Zheng Mei is the holder of a single share in Wedgetail. The documents were lodged with ASIC on Mr. Andrews' behalf by A-list law firm Arnold, Block and Liebler. Now, we do know that Andrews, while Premier, loved to visit the CCP there in China. His last visit, actually, while he was Premier, was all hush-hush. No Australian media allowed. No journalists from this country were allowed there. And everything was a bit secretive, and we didn't really know what was going on. Lots of speculation around this. Now, I'm not linking these two things together, but I'm just saying the secretive nature of his visits to China. And lo and behold, now, as he sets up these new business ventures, there is a bit of a link back to China via this, Australian-Chinese businessman with one share in Wedgetail Proprietary Limited. What does that mean? What does that typically mean when one person, a person has a single share in a company? I'm not really, too versed in understanding this exactly because it's all new news. Clearly, people will be looking into what Daniel Andrews is up to with this business venture, and we'll find out as time passes. Let me know what your thoughts are on what Daniel Andrews is up to. Now, the next story I have is a bit of an update on something that I've been discussing over the last couple of days, and it's the rise of crime in Victoria. Now, tragically, we had that doctor that was murdered after a home invasion by two 16-year-olds. Well, as it turns out, again, to no one's shock and surprise, one of the 16-year-olds, was actually out on bail during the time he murdered this doctor. Crazy, right? All the time when we hear in Victoria that someone's been charged with a crime, we always find out the day after that they were already out on bail for another crime. It seems to happen a lot, whether it's murder, rape, theft, assault. These people always tend to be out on bail after committing a new crime, right? Our bail laws, there seems to be some issue with the judges issuing these bail orders. I can't quite put my finger on it, but I'm definitely sure there is an issue. We should actually change our motto in our state from the garden state or the education state or the place to be to the out of bail state, right? That's how common it is for people who end up on the news for committing a crime to have been out on bail. Tragic, and the family of that doctor is asking for more to be done to make these issues go away or mitigate them by the people in politics and the people in the justice system actually taking this issue very seriously. Now, the next story that I have is to stay with the law, and this is in Queensland. If any Queenslanders are watching, you can kind of give me a bit more info on this. Please share it in the comments. But it says that consent laws in Queensland criminalize spontaneous marital sex. Let's read the article. New sexual consent laws in Queensland could criminalize married couples having spontaneous sex and be misused in messy divorce cases, the state's peak legal body warns. The Queensland Law Society has told state MPs their attempts to replicate consent laws in other jurisdictions, which demand a person get affirmative consent before sex, could lead to a miscarriage of justice. But the Parliamentary Committee reviewing the consent bill has ignored the Law Society's warnings and recommended the bill go to a vote. The Queensland Law Society, in submission to the committee, said the state's proposed bill could criminalise spontaneous sex between long-term partners because they would be required to explicitly communicate consent. I'm going to quote what they've said here. A long-term married couple may have spontaneous sexual intercourse without any prior explicit communication because their history enables them to understand each other's non-verbal behaviors, the submission reads. This bill is an inappropriate extension of the criminal law. Now, I believe in Victoria there's consent laws as well that we have in relation to this matter. But when it relates to the bedroom and it comes to, married couples, consent laws, particularly for acts of spontaneous sex, the government coming into the bedroom now and, what's next? You're going to have to sign a contract with your wife or your partner and beforehand and submit it to the government or use some app, something like this. The last story that I have is the ABC, sticking to the theme of Australia Day that I'm talking about. ABC has been slammed for social media posts urging people to turn up for Invasion Day. That's right. So even though Australia Day is not, celebrated by the progressive left and, the likes of the media like ABC, they like to shun it. They will promote things like Invasion Day, so which is the day of mourning that many people attend these protests, these vigils or whatever that they hold to mourn the fact that Australia was settled by British colonialists. Now, forget what we think about this. I think the issue here is that the ABC is promoting these events with these social media posts. One of the posts even said something to the effect of, 1 week out, time to turn up. Did we miss an event near you? So they're actively promoting a protest. Now, it's fine in a way if the ABC took charge and promoted all types of events which are happening in the community, right? What about a Australia Day event? Are they promoting that on their social media posts? Are they promoting, a march for anti-vaccine protesters? Like, that's neutral. That's being impartial. But clearly, again, the ABC is picking and choosing the types of things they want to promote on their publicly funded taxpayer platform. Let me know your thoughts on that one. Now, two updates from Davos. That's right, I'm still following up on Davos. And the first one that I have is around the digital ID. Now, that's something that we discussed in Australia as well, because legislation is being introduced where they're saying that, the digital ID that's coming to Australia is very voluntary. You don't really have to do it if you don't want to. And it's just like, basic ID to help with security, financial services, and, just government verification services, right? Like your MyGov, links to those kind of things. Now, what's come out of Davos is we have this Queen Maxima from the Netherlands, as she's talking about initiatives that she's involved in as this kind of, part of Davos agenda as well, right? Digital ID is a massive part of the Davos agenda. And this is what she has to say about digital ID. Listen very carefully to Queen Maxima of the Netherlands.
I have to say that when I started this job, there were actually very little countries in Africa or Latin America that had one ubiquitous type of ID, and certainly that it was digital, and certainly that it was biometric. And we've really worked with all our partners to actually help that being, to grow this. And the interesting part of it is that, yes, it is very necessary for financial services. But not only,
Sure.
It's also good for school enrollment. It's also good for health, who actually got a vaccination or not. It's very good to get your subsidies, from the government. So this has not only effect to the financial services. It's a very important issue.
So there you go. I heard it from Queen Maxima of Netherlands herself. She's saying, yes, these digital IDs that they're testing out or developing in the developing world are not only just good for financial transactions or, identification purposes. It's good for enrolling kids at school. It's good for checking vaccination status, right? It's good for getting subsidies from the government, or, another word for that might be getting welfare payments from the government or whatever it is. So you can see how they're trying to link these digital IDs, at least in the developing world where they test a lot of these concepts, right? Because they really have very little chance in those countries stopping their governments from pushing these things through. You can see where they're going with this. And I think the same things are going to happen with the types of systems that we're being pushed into in Australia and in other countries in the West as well, right? The development of these basic digital IDs is to amalgamate everything else onto them as well. Your financial services, your vaccination status, for instance, any other kind of, power bills, phone bills, all the service providers can use this one ID. Now, again, that seems like convenience, and a lot of the times these things are pushed out as a matter of convenience and security. But then what happens when, security is breached on that, right? All your data is not secure, for instance, and we've seen the government get hacked before. But beyond that, what happens when we're in a situation where the government wants to control access to services, access to banking, for instance, access to, going and buying something at the store, because we're in the disease X pandemic in the future and it's a lockdown, and the government's like, all right, cool, we're going to deactivate your digital ID so it can't be verified in this instance, right? It can't be verified when you want to travel outside. It can't be verified when you want to use your bank account. Whatever. Hypotheticals, I know. But once you kind of centralize all of these things onto this one digital ID, you can see where this is going. Let me know if you think that I'm, talking gibberish here when it comes to this. I really see this as another one of the major ways that they're looking to, exert control over the population. Now, we know the other day I said Donald Trump has come out against things like central bank digital currencies, but that's not always going to be the case. They're going to get these things pushed through one way or the other if it's not opposed by the majority of the population. So once those things come into fruition, what we're going to have is more insistence on having this one central digital secure ID that they're going to push. And at the end of the day, they're going to have control over you. They're going to have you by the balls, to put it that way. Now, the next story from Davos that I want to show you is Alexander Soros. Now, Alexander Soros is the son of George Soros. Of course, they're paying lip service to him at Davos because he is a part of the global elite. This guy funds, open societies, all types of other institutions that meddle in politics, governance, democracy, and elections, right? They do this under the cover of helping fund these charitable organizations or these startups or these foundations that they have. But Alex Soros was speaking at Davos, and he was just having a cry about how Donald Trump came around and just turned all this upside down. So, which is quite funny that the globalist elites are crying about Donald Trump. This is about 2 minutes long, this video. I apologize for playing this, but Alex Soros has a lot of trouble communicating what he wants to say. You will see this when I play this video.
I don't think that that's the fundamental. I don't think technology is the fundamental issue in democracy. Democracy is messy. I mean, democracy is about contestation of ideas. It's about plurality. It's about people having different truths, actually. Now, fundamentally, how society lives together civically in those contestations is obviously quite tricky. But I think that if we play too much on this disinformation card, we're taking the responsibility away from ourselves to actually create a narrative that inspires people to vote and to believe, in democracy and democratic institutions. And on the institutional part, I think that we can talk about institutions as these abstract things, but institutions are also about people. And we just heard this point about untrustworthy people, and we talked about things in the United States like checks and balances, which aren't written anywhere but are customs. And one man, Donald Trump, literally came in and just took that all away. So
anyway, you get the idea, and Donald Trump took that all away. What a sook to begin with. But the fact that this guy, you would think that appearing at something like this, they'd put a bit of effort into his presentation, but he's just like Anyway, let me know if you think I'm thinking about this too much. Speaking on Donald Trump, the New Hampshire primaries are coming up. A bit of fireworks happening right now. Nikki Haley is in the press because they're saying that she's had affairs while she's been married to her husband with 2 other men, and all this is kind of coming out now to, I guess it's the tail end of that primary. So it's between Donald Trump and Nikki Haley that a lot of people are looking at this. And what's come out is, of course, that Donald Trump does have a bit of a colorful past as well, but Nikki Haley has painted herself as this kind of moral superior to Donald Trump, and I think people are just saying, like, she's just all pretend, right? She's maybe the same thing in many ways, so you can't use those qualities of her against someone like Trump. She also has skeletons in the closet when it comes to her personal life. Again, I think it's just typical American politics when it comes to this kind of things. Also, on the US elections, we got the old bumbling fool Joe Biden. Will he end up running against Donald Trump? That is a question that we keep asking ourselves everywhere, even in Australia, when we're looking at this guy who seems to be asleep all the time. One of the names that have come up recently is Michelle Obama, former First Lady, wife of President Barack Obama, has come up as a potential contender. I cannot even begin to imagine the type of coverage that we will see in Australia if it does end up being someone like Michelle Obama. Can you imagine the Project or the ABC and all these other left-wing rags that we have in our country, how much gloating and sucking up they'll be doing to Michelle Obama and just saying how virtuous she is compared to Trump, and women this, women that, all this kind of nonsense that we normally get, almost like the way that they treated Meghan Markle at the start, right? Or Oprah. These kind of people, they're all in that little club, right, where there's nothing wrong with them. They're just so perfect, and they're portrayed as being these remarkable people, and in many aspects they have very good qualities that people can argue about, but the portrayal in the media is another story, and I don't know if I can deal with it. But again, Donald Trump versus Michelle Obama would be like the epic political battle, right? It's just crazy. Can you imagine the debates and the arguments that those two would have, and just how wild they will go when Trump says something mean to about the Obamas? I don't know. I kind of want to see that in a way. Alright guys, thanks for joining me for another news vlog. If you're enjoying my work, you can follow along on YouTube, Rumble, X, Twitter, X is Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, at The Real Rukshan. See you next time.